Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this live stream. My name's Gethin Ellis, and this is the Putting Into Human into Technology podcast, and now live stream. And I'm thrilled. Today, we're going to talk about ways technology and data can drive growth and innovation in the not-for-profit sector. I'm excited to introduce my first guest of this season. Jonathan Humphrey is the head of IT for Connection Support. Connection Support's a really fantastic organisation that's dedicated to helping individuals overcome challenges like homelessness and providing support for achieving independence and building resilience. And Jonathan's insights into how technology is playing a pivotal role in his organisation's mission and helping delivering that mission. So extend a warm welcome to you, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Gethin. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, it's great. It's great to have you. So, we've got some questions prepared. I'll just get straight on and kick off with the first one, if that's okay. Can you start just by telling us a little bit about yourself, your organisation, who you work for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a 52-year-old father of three with a love for computer games, photography, and 3D printing, and I've been in IT since I think I was about 16, so a long time. I've seen a lot of things. And I think I've done most roles in IT in that time, from computer operator in mainframes through to first line support, help desk managers. At one point I was the IT director for a logistics and software organization. So I've done a lot. And in those times I've seen things go around the circles. It's like we seem to be doing the same thing every few years or so, but it's part of the fun. Yeah, exactly. I took a few years out about 5 years ago to give myself a bit of a mental health break and to focus on my family. And after a while, I needed to get back into work. And at that point, I was able to choose the place I worked based on what I wanted to do, rather than by a salary, which was an incredibly lucky position for me to be in. At that point, I started looking around.
That is a nice position to be in. Sorry, I was going.
It is. I am very aware of how lucky I am to be in that position, and I couldn't have done that without support of my family, and specifically my wife, who brings in the money. But at that point, I could choose the job I wanted to do. So at that point, I chose to become the head of IT for Connection Support, and Connection Support also agreed. So we agreed on that, and I joined them in October the 31st, 2022. So almost 2 years now.
Okay.
And as you say, we're an organization that started with 5 people who thought that they could make a difference in homelessness prevention in Oxfordshire. Here we are 30 years later. They clearly got it right. They clearly had the right attitude and right strategy. And over the last 30 years, we've grown massively. We now provide support with homelessness and housing and mental health and family support for young people. And we also do a lot of stuff around refugee and asylum support as well. We're now 210, I think. We have 5 sites around Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire, including Milton Keynes, and we continue to grow. And I hope that as an organisation, we continue to provide support and help people where it's needed. Although I'd rather we didn't exist, but we do. So let's do the best we can, right?
Well, that's it. I guess that's for an organisation like yours. Yeah, I think everyone wishes they weren't needed, but unfortunately they are, and you are there to do a sterling job. So sounds like you're doing good work. Thank you for sharing that with us, Jonathan. Now I'm going to try and change the banners here, so I'll make sure I get it right. There we go. We'll move on. We'll move on to our next question. Thanks for that introduction. The history repeating itself bit is a theme that's prevalent throughout all the people we've interviewed. Previously, in terms of like what's the sort of like the thing you thought had gone and then it came back and it shocked you when it came back? Like for me, it's vinyl records, right? Of all the things, I'm like, why is that back? But clearly it is, right?
I don't think it shocks me anymore. I think I've been in the industry for so long now. I've seen us go from centralized to distributed computing, back to centralized, back to distributed. I've seen us go backwards and forwards on it so often. I don't think it's a surprise anymore. I think I'm more surprised by people thinking that it's different this time around. It's like, whatever we're doing in the industry, and I think the current buzzword that everyone likes to talk about is AI. It's like, it's the same thing in similar ways that we've done before, and we're approaching it in the same way. And we really should learn that it isn't the answer to everything. It's the answer to a certain set of issues. And
yeah,
but so
I'm old enough to remember the the old blockchain impact. I'm old enough to remember that, a couple of years ago, where that was going to be the next biggest thing in security and everything else. And oh, look.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like it has its place. It's done its work. Same for cloud. Same for AI. It'll have its place. It'll add value to people. But we just need to keep our eye on the fact that it's just today's technology.
It's just a tool. Yeah, it's just a tool.
Yeah, it's just a tool to do a job.
Yeah, the AI thing is interesting, because when the LLM stuff in particular, the large language model stuff, and ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff exploded probably was 2 years ago, probably just as you were starting in your job, actually, in fairness.
So.
There was my background in data. It was I remember saying, "Oh, we won't need a data model anymore. Won't need." And then 6 months later, we really need the data model to be as good as it can possibly be, so we get good stuff out of the AI. It's like it just changed in a split second. But anyway, I digress. I'm going off on one. Sorry.
No,
so I'll move on to the next question, Jonathan, if that's okay.
Of course.
Cool. So the next question is: can you share how technology and data has transformed connection support, and how it approaches achieving its mission? You touched on some things there, and I'd be interested if they are actually playing a role in how you go about delivering your stuff.
It does, but let me use the word transforming rather than transformed, because we're on a journey, and that journey will never end, really. But clients are at the center of what we do. Clients are, that's where our focus is, and what we want to do is support our clients, and we want to support more of them. We want to support them better. To do that requires data. Like, we need to know what we're doing well. We need to know what we're doing not so well. We need to know what works. We need to demonstrate what we're doing and the impact it's having, not just on our clients, but the social structure around them. We need to be able to show, we'd like to be able to show that when you join our service, your mental strength is here, and when you leave our service, it's much improved. And we like to be able to demonstrate that, and that's where data comes in. Being able to show that our journey with us has been of benefit to you and benefit to others can only be done through data, and that then helps us shape what we do, what we focus on. And it also then helps us when we're starting to look for funding, when we're talking to additional people to get money out of them so that we can do more. We can show them actual data, real-time data, to say this is the impact we're having, and we think if we do this, we could have this impact, and that's based on this data. So it's definitely based on good foundations as opposed to subjective opinion, and that's about data. That's where that comes from.
Can I just ask a question on? Can I ask a question
Sure.
on the data and the data collection?
Yes,
it's something that's kind of close to my heart as well. With the CIC I'm involved with. How and this is just purely for me to know how you guys are approaching it. How do you collect that data from your clients? How would you go about collecting it? Would it be through surveys? Would it be through, what kind of data collection methods do you use for gathering that, so you can prove when somebody came to us and used our services, they were in this was the data on them, and now they're in this, and it's clearly taken and improved all these other facets of their life.
In any way you can. I mean, that technology is really where that comes to play. When you talk about the question that you're asking, it's like data's, how we, what do we do with the data? Why is it important to us? How does it change our strategy? But technology is about delivering on that data, collecting that data. And, we could give everyone a pen and paper, but then that's not realistic. And then it becomes problematic in just collating, let alone actually looking at the data. So technology is an area where we continue to focus on, because our aim is to reduce technology drain on our support workers. We want our support workers to not have to worry about IT. We want them to focus on the client, because that's why they're there. So technology allows us to hopefully give them ways to make life easier. So whether that's through being able to connect to our systems any place, anytime, anywhere, or whether that's through you working with our clients when we're with them to collect data and do it interactively with the client, or whether it's just pulling that data back later via surveys or even via printed medium, because not all our clients like to interact with technology. They like a technology separate life. So we have to embrace all the different approaches that we possibly can with an aim to make it as accurate and as efficient and as easy as we can. So yeah, it's about giving people laptops that work, giving people the phones that work, finding out how to connect with your clients. I mean, our clients tend to be, they don't tend to focus in particular locations. We don't have them like a drop-in center where they tend to come to. It tends to be very much a one-on-one basis. Although we do run one in Banbury, but that's not really the main focus of, it's not the best way for us to get hold of our clients. It's mostly with our support workers. So yeah, make it easy, accessible. That's how,
Cool.
that's
Easy and accessible.
however.
Cool. And this is me being nosy and tell me to mind my own business here, but you then use that data to as I guess evidence in funding bids and other things, so you can secure the resources you need to go about delivering what you do, and that would underpin that process as well as all the other things you do as well. So it's kind of critical, really.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue we're a data-driven organization, and we wouldn't like us to be thought like that. We'd like it to think about we're a client and employee-centric organization, but everything we do is governed or demonstrable through data. So yeah, data is the key to everything.
So in one of my talks where I talk about building a data-driven culture in your business, I actually say organizations and leaders in those businesses generally don't want they don't want to be a data-driven organization. They want the benefits that brings. So they still want to focus on what they're trying to deliver. But cool, excellent. That's sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think that our senior leadership team are a little bit are not like that. They're very much aware of the part that technology has to play in us delivering our services, getting additional funding for additional services. We know that. The senior leadership team are driving forward that strategy of how do we use technology to do our job better, because it can have an impact.
Cool. All right. Well, that I guess that sort of segues nicely then into the next question. And given what I've seen, your organisation has a report out currently. It's like an annual report they release, and there's some sort of key highlights in that connection support annual. I think it's a trustee report, isn't it? But it's freely available on the internet. I haven't found something I shouldn't have found.
No. I posted that on LinkedIn. Fine.
There's some interesting sort of summary stuff in there, like, over the last, there's been a 20% increase in individuals using your service, which is clearly means that your organisation is busy, and clearly that is a worrying trend for society at large.
Yeah.
And then I guess the next question is, you've got an expansion of a digital solution to improve those client outcomes, and it sounds like that's been successful. So I'll ask you to elaborate on that a little bit, and then that ties into the actual question I wanted to ask, which was, what has been the biggest challenge for you and your organisation when it comes to implementing new technologies, and how do you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so I mean, that transformation of collecting data and using data is a journey we're on now. So we haven't done that. We're not at the end of that yet. We're in that journey. So we're still collecting and sorting that, and that has involved us replacing our existing CRM with a completely different setup, which gives people the ability to use the data and gives us the ability to access the data and use it and report on it and create quality statements on the back of it. So, I mean, in the third sector, it's always about resources, right? It's always about how much resource do you have available, and that's about people, that's about stuff. But fundamentally, that comes back to money. It's brutally about money, sadly, in that if we had infinite money, we'd have more support workers, we'd have better equipment, we'd have better investment in systems. And I think that for us, that looking, what has been the biggest challenge is around that investment, and having the right people on board with the right skills to direct that investment. Dealing with the technical debt on a daily basis is something that we're dealing with even today, and we'll continue to deal with for a while, but we're gradually getting rid of all of it. There's a hunger within our organization to do more and to do better with the limited resources we have. But we still fundamentally have an organization that is busy. There's a lot of people out there doing a lot of really good work. And sometimes I need to help them to kind of understand that taking time away from supporting the client and doing this technological thing is actually an investment for the client. It just doesn't look like it on the shape of it. So our user base are great. They're amazing. They're committed. They're lovely people down to an individual. But a lot of them are finding technology change difficult. A lot of find them change difficult. So when you're changing systems wholeheartedly, you need to provide them more support than I think I've found in previous organizations. But I like to do that because it means that you're helping them through their journey as well. And so for us, it's those are some of the challenges we face. And
so I'll just pick up. I'll just ask a little bit on that last point, because that's again, this resonates with some of the stuff I talk about. The terms of the people, your staff, the people who are delivering that service. I guess people are naturally resistant to changing what they do because it makes them uncomfortable, perhaps sometimes. And,
absolutely.
How do you approach like getting them on board and getting them on side? No, supporting them and maybe training, but how would you go about like trying to I guess negate that resistance?
I think there's a couple of ways.
That sounds a bit negative. It doesn't mean to be negative, but
no, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It's a reasonable question, right? I think a lot of it is about trust, and I think that we put a lot of effort to build trust with our user base, who maybe didn't have that with IT in the past and technology in the past. That it will be better for them. Their phone will work. Their computers will work, and we do that through openness, transparency, communication, and basically involving people in the changes. So rather than forcing a change down on people, we should be bringing the change on board with people, and they're part of the choice, part of the decision, and part of the process we go through to create that. And that's really how I do it. And I don't always get it right. I don't always touch the right notes, but that's certainly the aim and the approach we try to take.
The approach you take, cool, excellent. That's again, it's a subject that's quite close to my heart as well. Right. So looking ahead, then, how do you see data and technology shaping the future of your organisation and the I guess the not-for-profit sector in general, the third sector in general?
So I think that technology will continue to be what technology is, and it will continue to evolve and be different and change, and hopefully we'll work out the good parts and use the parts that we need to use to get things better. I think AI has a place here. For us, it's a difficult subject because we have a lot of very confidential and personal information, so we can't just throw it at ChatGPT and ask it what to do. We have to look after that data and structure that very carefully. We also have to make sure that we're using AI for good purpose. So for us, and for many people, I think that AI is not an answer to everything in a similar way that we used to think cloud was, right? It's a solution to a problem. And for us, it's a way of taking out the mundane from people's day-to-day work and making life easier for them. So rather than spending a day or 2 days creating a report about a particular client, maybe AI could do the basics for us in 5 minutes, and then we spend an hour collating that report into a nice structure that works well and is accurate and right. But the front loading of collecting the data for that report has already been done by technology, rather than by the individual spending a day going around and picking it up and pulling it out and creating reports and graphs and stuff. So that's one way that we think technology will change. But also data and access to data. I mean, we have lots of different organizations that we work with, and all those organizations have their own data, and we don't share this data for the reasons that I don't need to explain around privacy and confidentiality and process, and in some case potentially bureaucracy. But maybe we could. Maybe there's a way that we could pull that data in a way so that we're all helping each other, supporting clients, rather than as all supporting clients as little islands of isolation. But also it's about, we have this idea of this digital support worker where the support worker is throughout their whole process can do everything they need to do digitally, and they can just access what they need anywhere and just answer the questions the client's asking on the side of a road and signpost them to the right service that might not be us, but refer them online. And if just imagine the environment where if you're homeless, it's 10 o'clock at night, you've got nowhere to go, you find a phone box, you press a button and something happens, and these people turn up and take you to a homeless shelter, but they already know who you are. And it's a bit utopian and a bit sort of like 1984 maybe, but it's just that whole idea of being able to just, how can we bring technology together to just like help each other rather than maybe make something prettier, shall we say? I just think we're not using that data in any way yet. We really in the best way yet. We need to. Technology, I think, is going to pin that data. It's there. Let's share it. Let's use it together. But it's not that simple, right?
Well, it probably is that simple, but there's a lot of regulatory stuff you'd probably need to do around it, and the ethical stuff behind it as well. Are all things you're going to have to consider.
I mean, I wouldn't suggest we just start sharing the data tomorrow. No, that's not what I would like to be. But there are many privacy and ethic questions that need to be sorted and understood. But let's start. That process.
We've had a comment come in from my friend Chris Wagner, who is just see if I can put that in there. Talk about meta. How do you gather metadata and then generate data on that meta report on the improvements of the metadata? I don't know if you want to answer that. I think that's Chris making a comment more than perhaps asking a question, or if you look like you might have some thoughts on it.
It depends on what he means. I don't fully understand the question, if I'm brutally honest. So, but if he's asking how do we know what to collect data on?
That this is what he's put into the chat. Talk about meta. How do you gather metadata about data?
So the data we don't always get to choose the data that we collect on our clients. Sometimes it's given to us by the funders. They want to know X or Y or Z, and part of that, a lot of that, is always about understanding the impact and also about where they are. But that's stuff that's given to us, right? But so we have to collect that as part of the contracts. The rest of it is where do we have an internal quality team that is starting to develop metrics that we want to monitor internally so that we can demonstrate that we're doing a good job or we're not doing a good job internally and understand how to improve and get better. So I think there's a couple of sources there in terms of what metadata we're looking for is the stuff that we're given by the funders and the stuff that we want to actually learn about to get better at what we do. Okay. Maybe that's not his question. I don't know.
Well, he's come back actually, so he's still listening in. Hello, Chris. Good to see you, mate. He says you were talking about gathering data and showing how the work you were doing improves the data.
Yeah. So I mean, that's about like if I support clients in two different ways, right? One way has a better improvement than the second way. Then we know that we should look at the second way and understand why that is, and look at the first way and understand why that's not working. Because there might be reasons we're not aware. But yeah, it is. Yeah, there's a lot of data is like, as I say, it's all about data. We're a data-driven, client-centric organization.
Fab. And then just to come back to the AI bit, I know you answered that question, you're given that sort of like, wouldn't it be good if a homeless person could go to a phone box and press a number? Like, are you on that journey yet? Have you started on it, or is it like that's something that's possibly on the periphery, sort of down the road in terms of the roadmap?
It's just something I pulled off my head during this chat. It's like I don't think we're on that journey in terms of like going up to a post box and pressing a button, or a phone box and pressing a number. But would it be good?
But the ChatGPT digital helper thing is very much something that
we're definitely on that journey. Yeah, we're definitely on the digital support worker journey. That's part of the investment that Connection have made since before I joined, and I've been part of delivering. Yeah, it's happening now. It's a long journey though.
Cool. Thanks, Jonathan. Now, Chris has come back again. He has one more question. His question is, what would the most important KPI you would track for measuring data quality?
Data quality? That's a good question. I'm not sure I have the answer for that one off the top of my head. But question. I think, quality of data is about, I guess we're looking at consistency and accuracy of that data. Yeah, that's my off the cuff question, but that's a
Well, I guess data accuracy, though, given the people you're helping, that some of that data might be ever changing. We take for granted our address is fixed, and homeless people, that's not necessarily so, right? So, I guess your data quality might be very good on Monday, but by Tuesday or Wednesday, it's perhaps not as good as it once was. So that's probably a challenge all on its own, isn't it?
But knowing that, right, knowing that data can change and having systems in place to manage the data is part of that. So you know that data can change, and you know that your clients can come to you in 4 or 5 different names, and they won't know their national insurance number, and their date of birth can change, and their phone number can change, and their address can change. You have to develop ways to manage it. That's a constant evolving thing, and that's but that's also how do you define accuracy? Good question.
Well, that's a tricky tricky one for you to answer, I guess. If you can go to the record you have on a person and you're able to contact them in a way that you need to, then it's an accurate record, I guess.
We've got lots of questions. Then assuming, but you're then assuming that person is still got that phone number and they're still accessible in that way. That doesn't make the data inaccurate. It just makes it out of time, or they've lost that phone, or they've run out of charge, or how do you define accuracy is in our space, I think is difficult. But I think I'm going to say coming back to dependability, but that's just going to generate another question, I think. But it's a good question. It's difficult.
We've got a question from Rob Bassey. And Rob's question is, when does data become a business distraction? I have known a CEO who come up with an idea and want answers in days, even if gathering data to research the CEO's idea takes weeks. This risks him becoming anti-data.
So we don't have that problem.
You don't have that problem.
Our CEO isn't like that, thankfully. Yeah. But you've got to. But that also comes down to education and like making sure the CEO is aware of what is and isn't possible. But it's not just the CEO; it's the organisation as a whole. I mean, our senior leadership team is not just made up of our CEO; it's many other people, including our trustees. And it's just making sure they're aware of what can and can't be done. And if they want to ask that question, I'm like, sure, but it'll take me 3 months to get it. Are you sure you want to ask that question? But part of it is building a flexible environment where we can collect that data. Like, historically, we couldn't change our environment. So if we wanted to collect data, it had to go to spreadsheets. Yeah. So part of it is creating an environment where we can just okay, we want to correct shoe size now. Let's add that to the data we're collecting. How do you make sure it's accurate? You can't unless you go there with a tape measure and measure them. You just have to trust.
Cool. Okay, well we have some interesting questions here. Thanks, Chris and Rab for putting them in. We still have one to deal with though, which is a bit of fun. We're a fun for us to end the session on. So this is the fun question, Jonathan, and I always love people's answers to this. So, what advice would you give your younger self just starting out in the IT industry?
So I'm a survivor of mental health issues, challenges, whatever we want to use. I was late diagnosed with ADHD. I think it was 51 when I discovered I had ADHD. And I'd like to go back to my 16-year-old self and say, dude, you've got ADHD. Go find out what that is and go find out how you're going to manage that and get the support structures in place to manage it, because it's going to impact you every day for the next 30 odd years. And you won't know until you turn 51 what all that was about and what it meant. And I think it's not traditional career advice, because it's not the kind of the typical stuff that people give. But I know that if I could go back and tell myself that 30 years ago, that it would impact almost every interaction I've done in my life dealing with the challenges that ADHD gives you, and how it can make you, an incredibly people-centric, an incredibly person-centric person, but also can make you a very brutalistic person to deal with and to communicate with. And go back and tell him that and say, look, first of all, go find out what it is. Secondly, learn how to cope. And third,
can I ask a question, Jonathan, on that?
Sure.
Because you had that diagnosis late in life.
Yeah.
where would you signpost your younger self to? Like now, for example, if
No.
you
Oh,
were now, where
now?
would you say? Yeah, now, because I'm very conscious.
Um,
Perhaps 30 years ago, when you were having this conversation
it
with
wasn't.
yourself,
Yeah.
it didn't exist,
Yeah.
right?
No.
But
No.
now, where would you send them? That's my question, I guess.
So 30 years ago, it was a whole different bag. I mean, the
Mm,
thing existed. Like ADHD it wasn't invented the last 30 years. It existed 30 years ago. We just put it down to, like, I was just a naughty child who didn't pay attention and wouldn't sit still.
mm,
That was put on me. Like, that's a choice, if you like. Where would I say I'm posting now? So, I mean, I have 3 children, 2 of which are neurodiverse. One of which has a diagnosis, one of which hasn't got it. So, yeah, like, let's go to the doctor, dude. Let's get that. Let's get you referred. And if you can afford to go private, do it. If you can't, go through Right to Choose. But there's lots of podcasts out there. There's lots of great resource out there. There's a lot of great help out there that was never there when I was like 20. So yeah, getting to the doctors is your first thing, and talk to your parents and get it sorted. But yeah, get to the doctors. But it's, you're waiting in some places. I think it's Oxfordshire. It's like 9 years to wait for a diagnosis, which
time.
is just like, and this.
You'd have gone through the school system, wouldn't you? Really, you'd be finished in school unless you get.
Well, he is. Yeah, like one of my children is. They're outside school. They're actually like, they're not a child anymore, and they have to go through the doctors. But my youngest, she was picked up in school, because the school, thankfully to them, are very much aware of those sort of issues these days, and we're like pointing them out to us very early. But yeah, if you're doing that, but we were lucky in the fact that we could do that privately. If we couldn't, we'd still be waiting for a diagnosis now, which is just, it's not okay that we're in this scenario, because it's just as debilitating. It's just as it's a disability that affects people just as much as, any physical disability you see. It's horrific what you have to cope with. It's just, you don't get it until somebody like explains it to you, and then you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So that's why I do that. So yeah, it's just not okay. We need to do more, and we need to talk about it more, and do more to educate people as well.
Well, that's good. My wife, CIC, is actually it does a lot of work in the neurodiverse space, because our eldest is he's on I get the terms wrong, but he's on the spectrum. It's not ADHD he's got, but he's not ADHD. He's he is neurodiverse though.
Yeah.
And Sabrina spent a huge amount of time researching that space.
Yeah. So I think there's the statement that we're all on the spectrum in some way, but it just affects us differently, and it's not a scale of 0 to 10. It's more like a 3D map of all sorts of peaks and troughs, and we're all different. I have ADHD. My colleague has ADHD. We have very different types of ADHD with very different outcomes and behaviours and very different support structures. A lot of that is about the people around you. I mean, Connection are fantastic in terms of their support that they've given me, and I couldn't imagine doing what I am and being who I am without that level of support, which I haven't had in other organizations. And that was what led me to needing that career break, because I was just drained through it. And if you look at this is why I co-run the neurodiverse support group at Connection, is to give other people the support they need. And my favorite phrase is that Connection support is the first place that I felt like I could be me. Every other organization, I always felt pressure to be a neurotypical version of me.
So that speaks volumes for Connection, in fairness.
Yeah, they're a very people-centric organization, both employees and clients.
Fabulous. Well, that's a really thank you for sharing that with us as your final answer. There's a few other comments in there. I don't think there's any other questions. We'll catch up on those when we go offline, because we're coming up to best part of 40 minutes now, Jonathan. So we'll draw this to a close, guys. So just to wrap up, I'd like to extend my huge thanks to you, Jonathan, for joining us today. Your insights have been fabulous, and learning how you're using technology to make a significant difference on people's lives is very inspiring. Clearly, the work you're doing is making a massive difference, and helping people find homes and stability and independence. So thanks again. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thank you all for your comments and questions. It's much appreciated. Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you, Gethin. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.